Hi, Martin here. Today I want to show you how to do a fuel tank tuck or raise on your 99 through 04 Jeep Grand Cherokee WJ. Now let's go back to the business end of this project. Now when it comes to the WJ Grand Cherokee, I think they're one of the best looking Cherokees out there. And the one thing I do not like is that fuel tank hanging down there like that. It's kind of ugly. Now that was my first reason for doing a fuel tank tuck. And then I found out that the Pinto and the Grand Cherokee have something in common. They both have that rear end impact and the possibility of catching on fire. Boom, you know. And the reason for that is they both had the spare tire mounted above the fuel tank. So to get that trunk space in there, you gotta push the gas tank down to get the spare tire in there. Well, that exposes it, makes it vulnerable to a rear impact. And you know, the first time I heard about this, I was immediately concerned about the safety of my daughter and myself riding around in this thing, and you know, getting rear-ended. And so that was the second thing, but the most important thing to me was safety. Then for all you rock crawlers out there, I mean, clearance has got to be a big deal, and the departure angle on these Grand Cherokee, you know, isn't all that great. And coming off a rock face, and that fuel tank is very vulnerable. I mean, it's going to hit on that. The only thing I can say that's nice is the skid plate itself is really heavy duty. Chrysler stepped it up there because, well, I feel that they probably knew about the possibility of the fire thing, and so they put as heavy duty a skid plate on there to make that less likely to happen. And then the fifth thing for me, well, I can't leave well enough alone. So how about we get started? So I want to take it from this to this. Oh yeah. And this to this. Yeah. One of the other things that's going to help raising the fuel tank is the aerodynamics. This fuel tank hanging down here like this is adding drag and probably adding uplift to the back of the vehicle. So if we can get that fuel tank up there, the way the air comes off the back of this Jeep is going to help reduce that drag and uplift. So that's another point. Now let's start by taking off the bumper skin, and we got all these push pins around the bottom here and around the wheel well that hold this bumper skin on here. And another thing you're going to want to do before you get too far is get that fuel tank as light as possible. With that skid plate on there, it's pretty heavy, and especially if you got to do this by yourself. Of course, have like a hydraulic jack ready to help lower and raise that tank back up into place. All right, using one of these like body panel removers or whatever you want to call it, they do a good job at pulling these push pins out, just like that. And sometimes you get parts of them. There we go. Get behind it. Now you may end up breaking some of these, so be prepared to get some. I'll put a link down in the description below where you can get them. On each side of the bumper back here by the rear wheel, you don't need to remove this mud flap part of it or this inner liner, but as soon as you get those push pins out of there, there is a 10mm nut right back here that you need to remove. Now when removing the nut on the back side of this stud right here, don't be surprised when you're removing that it comes out of the bumper. This portion right here, not a big deal. Just take care of that after you remove the bumper. You know, remove this stud, and then just screw it back into the bumper, and you'll be all right. And you'll find a T20 here on each side of the bumper, right here underneath the hatch, and then we'll pull out the push pins, and there's 4 of those. use this body panel remover and get behind these push pins. They're kind of a two-layered thing. You got to get in between the two layers. There we go. And just pull that out of there. Now that went flying. There we go. Alright, next we're going to remove the hitch. Okay, using a 18 millimeter socket. Got my DeWalt impact here. I would wear some safety glasses because this is definitely where some dust and rust and stuff like that could come down on you. Oh yeah. I'm getting dust falling in my face here. Definitely wear the safety glasses. Remove the 4 screws for the trailer connector so you can get to the electrical connection on the back side. Okay, you got one of these locking clips right back here. Slide that over and then push the tab on the connector and pull, hopefully. There we go. On the later model Grand Cherokees, they mounted the EVAP system back here. If you got the earlier models where it's underneath the hood, you're not going to have to worry about this. And this is just a few 13 millimeter bolts on here, and the whole thing comes out. That bolt right there, you just got to loosen it up, and it's got one of them oblong holes where you can lift it up and pull it off of there. I'm pretty sure the other one's that way too. There's one more up and under here. Right, and there'll be 3 hoses you got to undo. Don't worry, you can't mix them up. They're of different sizes. And there's one electric connection too. And of course, it's got one of those red locking clips in there. You got to slide over. I think I got it. There we go. All right. Now, as you see, that really opens it up here. Now I can get to these connections no problem. Okay, this is one of the vent lines right here. We want to disconnect that. There we go. Next, we'll get this clamp here on the fill neck. That is a 7 millimeter or a regular screwdriver. That surprisingly came off easier than I thought it would. I'd find something to plug this just to keep contaminants out of there. There are 2 other fasteners to remove. We got a 15 millimeter bolt here, and then there's a nut down here on the bracket. If you're wondering what that is, those are limit straps. Okay, right up here is one of the nuts you need to remove for that bracket. And then there's one electrical connection here. You can slide the connector off this bracket. There. Just like that. It's got that locking tab on there. Push that through. Yeah, sure. Push it through, he says. It'll be easy. After a few colorful adjectives. There we go. All right. Once you get that locking tab over, push this clip right here, pull them apart. Okay, and then we got this one electrical connection attached to the side of the skid plate. There. I just used the needle nose back here and pinch those 2 points together. And right here you want to also unfasten these right here. They're holding on these vacuum hose. Actually, both of them just kind of broke as soon as I touched them. I'm getting to the point where I'm getting ready to drop the tank. Now I got 2 bolts left here on the left side and one on the right that hold the tank up. Now, before I drop those down, and I'm by myself, I really don't got a good way to steady that tank. Now, I grabbed some bolts, like this one right here. That is from my 4.7, and they use this one on each cylinder head, and they use them for like pull points should they pull the engine out. So they got something to attach to here. Well, I've removed them because I just don't like having them in there, but I saved them. And if you don't have those, there's, I just saved other metric bolts and of this length. And what I'm going to do with those, I got one mounted in here already, right there. Now, I'm going to put another one right there, and then one on the other side. So now I can go ahead and remove the other bolts. I got the hydraulic jack underneath here, and I'm going to lower it nice and gently, and this way it doesn't get away from me. And we can stop down here. The tank will be nice and steady, and I can get the fuel lines and the electrical connection undone. All right, we're ready to lower the tank. Now you see how those bolts I put in there kind of coming in handy. I mean, they're holding the tank nice and steady. I can clearly get to the fuel lines right here on top of the tank. You're not going to believe how much dirt is just sitting on top of there. I'm going to have to definitely clean that up a little bit. Right here you can see all the dirt sitting on top of here. I'm going to bring my shop vac in here and scrape all this up and clean that up before I try to disconnect these. This is the area I'm really worried about. You disconnect this, I don't want any dirt getting into the tank or into these lines. With the system depressurized, try to disconnect these lines here. I push those 2 tabs in One of them. There we go. That up. Oh, there's a little pressure there yet. That wasn't much though. I just got a little bit coming out of there. All right. That should be everything. We can drop the tank now. Whoa. Now you see why I like having those bolts in there, because it does want to get away from you. I'm glad it's not full. There we go. All right. What a job. Grab yourself some vacuum plugs, and I would plug these up. That way nothing gets in and no gas vapors getting out. Alright, I'm going to remove the gas tank from the skid plate here. It's two 10mm bolts, and you'll need a 13mm wrench right there. Wow. Look at all that mud. Alright, I'm going to get a hose and clean this all up, get the tank cleaned up, so we can start mocking this stuff up. Wow. The previous owner did wheel this Jeep in the dirt, so this explains it, you know. I haven't got rid of all that Nevada and Utah dirt yet. Alright, got it cleaned up. A little hot water, the garden hose, and some simple green. Looks like it's brand new. The skid plate looks pretty good too. Let me show you that. Well, here it is. It looks a lot better than it did, huh? Alright, well, you know, I think I'm done for tonight. I'm going to clean up, bring the Jeep back into the garage, and call it a night. And I'll see you guys in the morning. Well, this thing sure looks a lot better than it did just a little bit ago. Now, like I was saying, I'm going to do a 4-inch tuck. Now, to make sure that you don't mess up on your lines and you get everything back where it was so everything bolts up properly. I think one of the first things you ought to do is like grab a square, and this isn't going to matter where you put this, but scribe a line right there. Now, when we cut this section out of here, no matter how much you're cutting out, you can always line that back up with that line, and everything should be good. Now, I like the idea of leaving a lip on here because I think it makes it easier to get everything lined back up again. Because if you cut it right up here at the flange, I mean, that would work. I would definitely, you know, tack weld it on and test fit it before you weld it on solid. Okay, I got my marks made. You're gonna notice the double lines. Well, I changed my mind. What I'm gonna do is cut down 1 inch from the top and then 5 inches from the top. So this gives me a 4-inch space right here. So these would be the two lines I cut on, and that'll give us our 4 inches. And then I have the center line going down the middle. We'll get everything lined back up when I weld it up. Here is the top half now sitting on here. I got that scribe line right there. Now I want to show you something that's very important about having that line there. Look down here at the ends. Look how that's hanging over. And this one down here looks like it's too short. It looks like it's this way too far. So if I were to push this down to where those actually line up, like that right there. Now it lines up perfectly, both ends. But we're off a good solid 3/8 of an inch. Now that piece of metal, if you look at it carefully, it's not square on either end. It tapers this way, and the other side tapers back this way as well. So that's gonna, if you were to just cut that off, not have this line in, and then line it up like this and weld it in place, you're basically pushing your fuel tank 3/8 of an inch forward, closer to the rear end. I mean, they'll probably all still bolt up, but it's not where it was. So I think it's important to have that line there. And this is where I'm going to put it, right there. Okay, here on the other side, this being the fill side of the vehicle, we're going to end up cutting these pieces off. So I went ahead and scribed a line on both sides here, so when I cut my section out, I'll be able to line this back up down here, and I know I got it properly set, that these holes should all line back up again. Okay, I got the pieces lined back up again, and here you can see my scribe line. Again, that's really important because you notice it's actually pushed way off this edge right here. So if you line this edge up, again, you'd be way off, probably by 3/8 of an inch. Okay, I'm getting ready to cut this spare tire tub out of here. Now another thing, like I was saying earlier about let's say I was going to build a rock crawler. Yeah, I'd be slamming this thing up here 6 inches, putting a 34-inch plate in here. And another thing that you'd end up probably doing is cutting this up here. You'd end up bringing your fill hose and your vent hose through here and going down to your tank. So you'd have to build a small, dog house to cover that up. Now, like I say, with a rock crawler, I'd be all over it. Now this thing, it's a street version. I mean, it's a street-driven vehicle. When you open up the hatch, I want him to look like it did from the factory. I don't want anybody to even realize that the tank has been tucked and there's no more spare tire. I just want it to look normal. What I've got here is just a piece of aluminum angle iron, and it's just running across here. And this is going to give me where I can put a square on here and get the same measurement all the way around. Now I'm going to mark out 3 1/8 inches. So I'm just going to make a mark here, and then I can just move this around and keep doing that And then all I got to do is get a straight edge across here and connect the dots. And then that's going to be my cut line. Now, using a flexible straight edge, just line those up with the marks you made and draw a line all the way around. Now, before you start cutting, I went ahead and removed the 2 bolts that hold the fuel filter on and just pushed it out of the way. And that gives you more than enough room here. Other than that, it's a little close. Hey, I got a hole in the bottom of my Jeep. Now this is the point of no return. We're moving forward. There's no going back now. Before I weld this solid, I want to test fit it. Put all the bolts in, make sure it all lines up properly. All right, so far so good. Well, it's not going to be a problem. Everything lined up pretty good. I'm going to take it back down, weld it up solid. And then we'll start working on the tub. First I need my old man glasses. By the way, what do you think one of these skid plates weighs? I know. Go on, guess. I'll let you know just a little bit. Well, at least what it used to weigh. This is a 11 gauge steel. 0.125. Came up with an idea. Now with that piece of steel that I cut out of here, this section right here, it had that lip on it, which you see right here, right there. And so I cut that lip out with the plasma cutter. Then place it here, and I'm going to weld that into place just on either end. Then I'm going to take my plasma torch and cut out that remaining part, and then weld this in solid. And what that's going to provide for you is a great place to get to that filler hose and your vent tube on your older models. So no matter what method you use, if you're going under the frame, through the frame, or over the frame with the filler neck, you'll be able to get to that connection to the tank very easily through here. Okay, I got it painted up. I went ahead and hooked it up. Now look how easy it is to get to that clamp right there. So you could have the tank up there, then hook up this side if you'd like. I mean, it makes it really easy to unhook and hook this end up. Now what I made was a circle cutter, or a circle guide, I should say, for the plasma cutter. I'll put a link up above here where you can, if you want to check that out, and I'll also put it down in the description. All right, so I got it marked out. And what we're going to do is cut out a 32-inch circle. I went ahead and installed the skid plate and tank just to make sure how everything fits. And the top of this tank, it does come close to where I cut this down. If you ran a piece of metal across here, I got probably a 3/8 of an inch clearance between what's going to be the top plate here and the fuel tank. So I think I call that just right there. Now I'll give you a shot of this, what I got going on. And I went ahead and found the dead center of this, and I'm going to show you why. Alright, right there, hope you can see that. I just put some blue tape on here, did a bunch of measuring this way and that way, found the center of the fuel tank, and then finding the center of the fuel pump assembly here. Then that tells me how far off center I'm going to make a hole through this plate and put a lid on it. That way I can service this without ever removing the fuel tank. Okay, with the circle cut out, now I took a measurement off the very center. I come out 6 1/4 inches off the center, and that should be the center of the fuel pump assembly. So off the center of this, we're going to cut a 8-inch circle. And then in that earlier video I was talking about where I made this circle guide, I already had cut a 9-inch circle. So we're going to use this as a lid for that. Should work out pretty nice. Alright, that's how this thing's supposed to work. This is awesome. Let's make a great access hole to get to that fuel pump. Just wanted to check out how this all fit. So I got the tank up in here in place. I got this piece of sheet metal held up here with a couple magnets. And then got the cover plate here cut. I can right on top of the fuel cell. Perfect. And that's going to go there. Got it pretty well centered. It's off a little bit maybe. I can still roll this around too. I can get this just right over top if I want. Just got to move it around a little bit. But easy access to get into here and change that fuel pump assembly out. Now the one thing, it's 18 gauge, and even if you use 14 gauge, you're going to end up having a drum. I mean, you could end up with this going down the road. Yeah, not so good. I mean, the original wheel well that was in here, it was 20 gauge, and it was plenty strong. Of course, they added all these rolled beads into it, with the bead roller type thing, you know. Well, they do it on a big old 200-ton press. But I got a friend down in Pahrump, Nevada, and we're gonna go visit him, and he's got a bead roller, and we're gonna roll beads into this and strengthen this thing all up so it's not going to have this happening. And yeah, this is going to be cool. I really liking the way this is turning out. Alright, well I'm going to stop it there for today, and that concludes part 1. I hope you've really been enjoying this. This is a huge project, and you definitely want to stick around for part 2 and check that out. And so if you haven't subscribed to me before, please hit that subscribe button right down there and that little bell symbol right next to it, and that way you get notifications of my next and upcoming videos. And I'm also an Amazon affiliate. Please check down in the description below where you'll find products and tools that we used in this video, and you can click through one of those links and do all your Amazon shopping through that link, and then the channel earns a small commission. I sure do appreciate that. Well, thanks again for watching, and we will see you on the next one.